everyone, welcome to Adventures in Everyday Cooking, where every day can be an adventure in your kitchen. My name is Heather, and today we're making sourdough bread out of a package. Pampered Chef has just come out with a sourdough bread mix, and if you know me, you know I love sourdough. I make sourdough. You may have just seen videos of me making sourdough. And now Pampered Chef comes out with this. I'm not saying that I will switch from making it myself, but I want to see if the flavor of this and the process itself lends itself to be just as good as if you make it from scratch at home. Now, there's some obvious differences. This is only going to take 3 hours to get into the oven and cooked, whereas regular sourdough, the process is about 24 hours. So if this makes sourdough at home more accessible to the Joe average home baker, this is gonna be amazing. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. So the directions for this are super easy. We're gonna add water to everything that's in this bag. We're gonna mix it and then we're gonna rest it for 2 hours. So I guess we'll just start right in. Now, because I knew I was going to do this, I already have some sourdough ready to be baked at the exact time that this is. Sourdough that I started yesterday, about 24 hours ago. So if this takes away some of that time and gives you back some time, I mean, it might be worth it. Let's smell. Oh. That smells good. I'm not sure what it smells like. It doesn't smell like my sourdough, but it smells really good. It smells very herby. Let's check to see what's in it. It says wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, mononitrate. So it has a nitrate in it. Riboflavin, folic acid, malted barley flour, fermented rye. Oh, that's what I'm smelling. I'm smelling the little bit of rye. It's the rye starter culture. That's what I'm smelling. See, I knew I smelled something. Salt. There is some sugar in this. Active dry yeast, wheat, gluten, and canola oil. So that's interesting. So I'm actually glad that I read this right now, you and me, because this is a sourdough bread because it has that culture in it, but it's also using some active yeast as well. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm also not sure how I feel about the fact that there's sugar in it, but we're going to give it a good try. We're going to taste it. I'll do a taste test with the people that are here in my household, but let's just move on with this. Okay, instructions are really easy. You pour your mix into a bowl, and then we are going to add 1 cup of very warm water, 110 degrees to 115 degrees. And I'm just gonna do what I would do for any sourdough, and I'm just going to mix it together kind of and make a shaggy dough. I feel like that's not enough water. I did weigh it. They have the weight measurements. The weight measurements were 250 milliliters of water. I don't feel like that's enough. See how it's not quite coming together very nicely, but we're gonna follow the directions. Okay, about this time, I'm gonna start working it with my hands because I feel like I need to get that flour incorporated in there. It does not say how long to knead it for. It just says not even kneaded. It says combined. So we're just gonna combine. And it is a sticky loaf, so I'll give them that. Let me just get my hand a little bit wet. As us sourdough people know, a wet hand will keep the dough from sticking to you. Okay, so now that I wet my hand, I feel as though that is a much more sourdough-esque loaf of bread. All right, well, because I know how shaggy sourdough can be, that looks pretty much similar to our sourdough that we make here at this house. So I'm just gonna leave it. All right, we're gonna get it covered and we are gonna let it sit for 2 hours. Then we're gonna knead it for 30 seconds on our pastry mat, and then we're gonna let it rise for 1 more hour before we bake it. So, all right, I guess I'll get this covered and see you back here. All right, it has been 2 hours, and what we're going to do is we are going to pour this or scoop it or something out onto the counter. Grab another dough scraper because I feel like it is rather sticky, which that's fine. That's how sourdough is, but it's stuck quite a bit to our bowl. So let's use the dough scraper. All right, and the directions say now that we're gonna knead for 30 seconds, and then we are gonna put it into a loaf shape and let it rest again for half an hour. So what I know about sourdough is that we're gonna stretch and fold. So we're gonna do that for about 30 seconds. What I'm gonna do though, is I'm gonna wet my hands so it doesn't stick to me, and we're gonna pick up the dough and pull it in. Now, first thing I notice is that this is still an awfully fragile dough, but maybe as we work with it, it will get better. I'm gonna get my dough scraper and just fold it in on itself. This is way wetter than my doughs are ever. And no, those of you that know sourdough know that the water is not making it wetter, just making it so that I can actually mess with it. So let's open it up again. So it is getting better as I'm working with it. As you can see, it's definitely strengthening up a little bit. So we're just gonna treat it like we would treat any sourdough and tuck it all together and see if we can build some strength. I'm probably gonna do it for a little bit longer than 30 seconds though, because I'm not quite kneading the whole thing for 30 seconds. Does that make sense? So maybe I'll do it more like for a minute. So I'll turn it over again, push it down, gently stretch over, gently stretch over. But as you can see, it's not super holding its shape here. Okay, so let's push it into a round. Wonder if I was supposed to flour the surface. Let me just check the directions. All right, according to the directions, yes, it needs to be floured. So let's do that. Let's flour the top of this ball, kind of like we would flour dough that we're making from scratch. Then we will flip over, press out, and fold inward. It's much easier to handle being that it's floured. So definitely flour your board. So let's go ahead and flour again. Let's push it around a little bit and get it to tighten up. So I feel like it's still very loose. See how it's just, we haven't created enough tension in this dough for it to stay together. So that's what I'm trying to do here. But I feel like I'm manhandling it too much. Like 30 seconds is up, right? We're gonna go ahead and call that good. So I'm gonna make mine into a loaf shape, not a boule. So I'm just going to roll, 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 and we'll call that good. So this is the shape that I want. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna flour it nicely. The Pampered Chef directions do not say to put it in a banneton, but I am, because I want to convince it to stay just like this. There it is. I'm not super impressed, but I'm not gonna write it off yet. I think I'm not impressed because I feel like for a beginner loaf, that was a little bit too sticky and I think people would panic. I panicked a little. So, all right, now we get to cover, hold on. Yes, it says to cover and let it sit for an hour at room temperature. So I'm gonna use my same cover here. Just gonna cover it up. Doesn't have to be perfectly covered, just as long as there's not a draft, and I'll see you back here in an hour. Okay, the timer is up and this thing rose a whole bunch. Look at how huge that is. I'm a little worried when I turn it out that I'm gonna deflate it. Hopefully not. So let's look at the difference between my dough and their dough. So my dough was straight from the refrigerator, but there is a difference. I don't know if you can see in this camera, but this one is very jiggly and this one's not as jiggly. So I'm a little worried about how that's gonna turn out, but we're just gonna go with it. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna take a piece of parchment paper, put it right over the top, and then I'm going to carefully roll it over onto here. There we go. That's not too bad. I'm a little worried about how jiggly it is, but I also feel like we have a good chance of success right now. Now, unlike my dough, this is room temperature. So my dough is straight from the refrigerator, so it may cook a little bit differently. So they want you to score this in several places. So I'm gonna go ahead and score right down the middle. I'm sorry, on the edges. Whoa, this is a very, very soft dough. It's like a pillow. Wow, that is soft. Also, different from my dough, this doesn't want you to bake with any humidity. So I'm gonna get it in just like it asks. We're gonna get it in 450 for 20 to 25 minutes. See you soon, bread. And now for my bread, you will see a big difference in the two of these. So I'm just gonna turn mine over here and look how firm this one is. This one is straight from the refrigerator because it helps it bounce. And we're just gonna cut it the same way. Cuts way better, just saying. But this is homemade, so we're gonna take it for what it is, okay? And unlike the other one, I preheated my Dutch oven, and I'm gonna drop it down inside my Dutch oven with some humidity. Usually I use my spray bottle and spray, but I think I'm gonna use some ice cubes today, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop that right down inside. Perfect. And I'm gonna get a couple ice cubes right down next to it, and then I'm going to replace the lid, and we're gonna bake this as well for 25 minutes with the lid closed, and then another 20 minutes with the lid open. All right, and when those come out and they're cool enough to cut, I will show you the results. We'll see ya. Okay, the bread is out, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little underwhelmed. I did go on the website and pull up a picture of what the bread should look like, and this is indeed what the bread looks like. It didn't rise much once it went into the oven, which has me a little confused, and you can tell it didn't rise much by the cuts that you see here that did not, they didn't spread. Unlike this one, which is the traditional sourdough, which spread quite a bit in the oven. So let's cut into these and we'll show you the difference and we'll taste the difference, because I'm not gonna lie, it's underwhelming, and I know other people who do sourdough will think the same thing. So we're gonna do the absolute no-no. We're gonna cut straight down the middle. Don't ever cut your bread straight down the middle, but we're gonna do it for this because I wanna see the difference on the inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it to its side so I don't squish it, because it is very soft compared to this one. All right, before I show the inside or even look at the inside, I will cut the middle of this one. Much crispier. And these aren't completely cool yet, but I couldn't wait. Ready? Dun, dun, dun. The inside of that looks a bit like a French bread, but I'm not mad at it. But that's not quite a sourdough texture, but it smells good. So we'll leave that right there so we can see it. And then we'll open the other one. Dun, dun, dun. That looks more like my sourdough texture with large holes. See how this one is way more open textured and this is way more closed? I think that's due to the non-kneading that we did. It may taste like sourdough, so we're gonna cut off a piece and we're gonna have some and just judge the taste. The crust is way softer than mine, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, it looks like regular bread texture. It doesn't look like sourdough texture. All right, so I will take an end piece, put a little butter on it. Here we go, taste test. All right, I'll take it back. That's a good flavor. It does have that sour flavor. It does have the bouncy, chewy texture. I'm a little sad about the crust, but I wonder if you could put it in a Dutch oven, preheated Dutch oven with some humidity and get a crust similar to this one. I'm a little confused as to why it didn't bounce in the oven, but the flavor is good. Like, it's a good flavor. Do I prefer it over my sourdough? Probably not, but it is a good flavor. Homemade is definitely superior, but this will work. I'm gonna butter these other ones so that the rest of the family can give their 2 cents. All right, the family has spoken. So everybody agrees that it's good bread, but it is not that traditional sourdough texture or flavor. This one tastes like a whole grain kind of rye, which makes sense because there's rye in it. And it's fine, but it's not the preferred taste for sourdough. Texture-wise, its texture is a lot like sandwich bread, but flavor, it tastes good to my husband. It does not taste good to my son. He said if both of these were sitting on my counter ready to be eaten for the day, he would not ever go to this one. He would only ever go to this one. Whereas my husband said he would go to either. And actually, when I said, do you want a slice of this bread now? He said he'll take a slice of that one. However, everybody agreed that the look of this can be improved upon. So I wonder if we did bake it in a Dutch oven with some humidity, if it wouldn't, I don't think it would spring up like this one did, but at least it would have the desirable crust. Now, does it need that desirable crust? I mean, kind of, because that desirable crust traps in all the moisture and kind of just makes it a better bread. I don't know. So what are my final thoughts? My final thoughts are, if you don't do your own sourdough at home, this is a valid option for you to do sourdough. If you do your own sourdough at home, I don't think that I would purchase this. Like I mentioned before, it has some ingredients that I don't really care for. One being the added cane sugar. There's also canola oil, and there is some nitrates in it. So that all being said, I wouldn't buy it again. I don't even think I would buy it to gift it to someone who wanted to start making sourdough. That's the honest opinion, and I hope that nobody's disappointed. I'm disappointed in the bread, but it is what it is. That's why we do these blind reviews, so that I can give my honest response on breads like this. So yeah. You know what makes me wonder though? If they can get sourdough in a package, I wonder if I can take my dried sourdough, mix it into flour, send it to my mom, and have her mix up her own sourdough with this extremely sour dried sourdough starter, right? Like, that might be something that I'm going to figure out, because how much of this would I need to equal something like this, or even like this, and still get that sourdough flavor without the extra additives? It's a good question. All right, you guys, well, that's it for me. If you enjoyed that video, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. I do videos several times a week, and I'm always looking for the next adventure. I think I found my next adventure, but I'll have to sleep on it for a few weeks and test some waters and see. But if you have any ideas, leave me a comment. I read all of them and I take all of your ideas into consideration because I'm always looking for the next adventure because I love to adventure in my kitchen. So until next time, you guys, we'll see ya. Bye.